Hello there and welcome back to the studio. Today, here is an image of the painting that will be created in today's episode. Yes, we will be creating a Frans Hals master study. So we are working on an 8x10 inch cotton canvas, and by the way, if I mispronounce any of the names with these master studies, I do apologize. I'm not very good at pronouncing names if you haven't noticed. So we are working with traditional oil paints. The past few videos I've been using the water mixables just to experiment with the water mixables, and I thought it's just been a long time since we have used the traditional oil paints. Here is an image of the actual master painting, the Frans Hals original painting, okay, and the name of the painting. Now, if you would like to find an image just like the one that I'm using for photo reference or very similar, I recommend checking out the Google Arts and Culture site. They have really amazing images that you can use for these master studies. Before I even lay a single brush stroke on here, I will explain that a master study is a learning can't speak today. It is a learning exercise, okay? Let me just start painting and then things will be a little bit easier to explain. It is a learning exercise, all right? With the painting as an end result, it is not intended to be a master copy. This is not intended to be a history lesson or anything like that. This is 100% about painting, maybe a little bit of, stories now and then, but mostly about the development of the painting. And in this video, you will see every single brushstroke involved in the development of the painting that I showed you earlier in this episode. So starting out, I'm just using a few simple straight lines to indicate the placement of the head, okay? And again, I want to thank you all for your concerns. I was out last week. I've been sick for a week now. I'm a little bit better now, but still feeling a little bit under the weather. So if my voice sounds a little bit different in today's episode, or I sound a little different, yeah, sorry about that, but you know why. All right, so getting started here, I think that I want the head to be about this dimension, give or take. Here's the corner of the now I know what this thing is called, the white thing, the article of clothing that I thought was just a collar. This is called a ruff. So there's the edge of the ruff over there, top of the head, bottom of the facial hair, give or take, goes about there. Corner of the ear most likely is going to fit over here. So there is the back side of the ear. And remember, these are very long episodes, long YouTube videos compared to, the average YouTube video being like 8 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that. So you have plenty of time to go get your sketchbook or your oil paints. I recommend it. Come on, you have time. Go get your sketchbook. Draw along with me. I really recommend it. Okay, here's the corner of the ear. Corner of the head. I'm thinking that the head might be moving a little bit too much this way, so let's just move the ear. I don't know. This is pretty much just the placement of the head, okay? So if you're new to this channel, the past couple portraits have been fairly straightforward. I've been using the same kind of technique, which hopefully makes these videos a little bit easier to follow. So in the beginning, it's usually the composition, okay, the placement of all of the elements in space. Once I have an idea of where I want everything to be placed, like I'm pretty sure I want everything to be placed like so, then I will start to move into the next stage, excuse me, the block-in stage, okay? So with simple straight lines and angles, so here's the top of the head, here's the hairline, okay? With simple straight lines and angles, now what I'm going to do is start to simplify the forms. So here's the axes for the eyebrow. Let me make sure I hit record. Yep, I did. So here's the eyebrow. Axis for the eyes. And it's about at an angle. I may be exaggerating the angle a little bit too much, so let's just straighten it out a little bit more. Notice how I'm holding the brush all the way, like the furthest distance back, okay? Keeping my arm straight. Though, admittingly, I have no option because the camera is like right in front of me. But yeah, the corner of the side of the eye socket is there. Nose, let's say, is going to be about here. Mouth probably will fit around here. Okay, so the idea right now is in the block-in stage to use simple straight lines and angles to simplify the more complicated forms, such as you know, the eye sockets and cheekbones and the planes of the nose and all of that stuff. We're going to simplify it into just a few simple straight lines and angles. The idea is if you keep your shape simple and easy for you to understand, it's just easier to work that way when the time comes to make any kind of changes, and believe me, they will. At least, you know, for me in this painting, those changes will be simple and easy to manage. Okay, so now we have the eye sockets indicated. I'm going to stand back. So every time I stand back or sit back, if you're drawing or painting along with me, it's an open invitation for you to also stand back or sit back with me. So we're kind of synchronized in a way. Okay. Okay, so I will say the consistency of the paint. I have my little container below the camera of odorless mineral spirits. Just a little bit though. I mean, as you see, these colors are kind of, I spread them out with the palette knife. They had a little bit too much linseed oil. I haven't used the traditional paints in a while. I've been using the water mixable, or what I like to call water cleanable, just for the sake of experimentation, really. So I guess they've just been sitting for a while. Let's see. Now we're going to start to block in the corner of the nose. And I'm looking for the just simple angles. See how this goes out, in, out. And I'm working on an acrylic tone, though I forgot to tone this with oil. I would have preferred to tone this with oil paint before. But again, with the water mixables, I was just toning with acrylic, and that's what this is. It's just neutral gray acrylic. So maybe next time I'll have it oil toned. It's the corner of the back side of the eye. Notice how I'm simplifying the eye socket, okay? At this point, any kind of details are useless, okay? We don't need them. Concavity of the eye socket over here. And we're going to talk about something that I refer to as the main triangle. Okay, so the main triangle, okay? Two eyes, even though they're just basically rectangles right now. The two eyes and the nose. I want to get this triangle as accurate as possible so that I can work with it and then build everything else around. I wouldn't want to start with the you know, the mustache or something like that. And it's just easier to work that way. You know, the hairline is relatively easy to move compared to the eyes or the nose. The eyes being probably the most difficult thing to move. But again, that's why I recommend to keep the shapes simple and easy. Trying to stay true to the angle of the eyes. Okay, angle over here. So when I start to focus, get into deep focus, I don't really talk as much, which you may actually prefer. But yeah, just to let you know, sometimes there will be times where I won't be talking as much. Corner of the eye. So that is the tear duct. So I'm looking at tear duct to tear duct. Start to block in the shape here for the mustache. A little bit more burnt umber, and you can use any any of the umbers or any kind of neutral color that you would prefer to draw. I just chose burnt umber this time. You know me, sometimes I'll use raw umber. It doesn't really matter as long as the your drawing color doesn't interfere too much with the colors that you're going to place later on. You can use whichever color you want. Now the mouth, I'm just going to keep very simple, like a brush stroke or two. The mouth is something that is very simple to move. Okay, so we're looking at this in the order of difficulty. Okay, with the eyes being the most difficult, the eyes to the nose, so we want to nail them pretty early on. I think the nose, I may have to move up a little bit. And all of these measurements are being made by comparison. So just sitting back and comparing. And in that way, you're training your eye. You're training your eyes to see instead of just, copying. Though, of course, there's nothing wrong with measuring. I mean, sometimes I'll just, take a caliper out or something and measure. But I just don't want to measure for these exercises. And there's no, I didn't add any mineral spirits or anything to this brush. This is just a pretty used up bristle brush that I'm using. And I emphasize the word used up. I mean, you can see the bristles are pretty worn out. It just helps to shovel the paint around, or if you have like a really cheap bristle brush, it'll help to shovel the paint around. The more fine bristle brushes, I think they tend to be a little bit softer from my experience, which is good for painting, but not so much for, shoveling the paint around like we want to. Okay, all right, so let's now look at the hair. So I'm looking at the negative space, so from here to here. I think that's about good. Gonna add a little more mineral spirits onto the brush. So what I do is just add a little bit onto the brush and just dab it on a paper towel. I have paper towel directly below here. So I am ending up pushing the portrait a little bit this way, which is kind of what I wanted to do earlier. So we are still in the block in stage. Okay. actually going to push the cast shadow a little bit darker. Cast shadow, okay. Cast shadow just means a shadow that's projected when, you know, light hits one thing and then projects a shadow onto here. Yeah, you get my point. I'll just sketch a little bit of a dark for the facial hair. I'll do the same up here. So typically in the umber sketch, you know, you can go about it however you want. You know, this is about mainly just giving you a technique to follow and then create your own independent paintings. But typically with the umber sketch, you know, I don't stress out too much about getting a perfect likeness or you know, trying to nail the drawing completely. I just set up the framework so that when I get into color and start to work with planes and such, I have something to build onto. And keeping the value families relatively simple, meaning not getting into any more than maybe like 2 or 3 values, is ideal. So a little more mineral spirits. I think I'm missing a little bit of, here we go, a little more of a curve here. I'm going to add some more character to the mustache. Gonna stand back. Okay, so the mouth, one brush stroke at a time. Kind of reminds me of Hagrid from, at least the mouth, this area kind of reminds me of Hagrid from Harry Potter. Stand back. Stand back again. Now, one thing that I do like about traditional oil paints, that something that you don't really get in, or that I don't really get in water cleanable oil paints, is the solvent. Okay, just, you know, by definition, I guess you're not using a solvent with water mixable. But anyway, I like that the odorless mineral spirits that I'm using here is going to evaporate, and it's going to, you know, dissipate into the air. It's going to let the umber sketch settle in quite nicely. Yeah, I don't really get that with the water cleanables. Not a criticism against water cleanables, it's just something that's different. So I'm just adjusting the corner of the nose there. Now you see how descriptive something can be with just 2 values, just 2 values in simple shape. gonna stand back. Okay. Alright, so I think we're making some progress here with the umber sketch, though I still want to get a little more of the shape of the head. Stand back. Yeah, so the hair is much more, the hairline is much more square, I think. This goes up. It's pretty modern, I think, haircut. I'll push this shape down. Tragus of the ear, just a simple little mark there. And this is something that you see in a lot of the master paintings of the past. The ear, look how simplified the ear, well, in that one, and the photo reference in the corner of your screen there. I like how they simplify the ears. Okay, so it's not perfect, but I think that we now have a underlying structure that we can now build our shapes onto. Okay. Well, right now that we're going to get into color, I'm going to be using bristle brushes. Okay, so if you are interested in purchasing the same type of materials that I'm using, or just knowing what materials I'm using, I have all that information typed up in the description box down below. I also have affiliate Amazon links, so those are the kind of links that if you want to buy the same materials I'm using my Amazon affiliate links, Amazon will pay me a small amount in return, so thank you so much if you decide to do that. But in any case, we're using the nickel yellow and the flake white, nickel yellow and flake white, to paint this highlight. It's more of a plain, I don't really think that's a highlight. Highlights will be somewhere about like there, but in any case. Now we're going to start to get into the idea of planes. And I'm going to take this one very much step by step. I'm not going to be moving so fast today. As you know, I'm still kind of recovering excuse me, from illness. So a little bit of alizarin. You know, I'm not really of the mindset of, you know, to work even through being sick. You know, I believe, you know, in self-care first. But, I mean, this has been a week now, okay? So after a week, I gotta paint. I gotta paint. Now I think this is probably the best example of planar thinking, I think. I mean, look at that. I mean, this plane right here, right? For the corner of the side of the tear duct contrasted with this plane, you can see that this one is hitting the light much more, and then it turns away from the light here, so you have that light. And it's already glowing. I mean, I think it's already glowing. Pretty neat. I'm going to have to title this one something about planes again. I don't really know. So now yellow ochre. So I have just switched brushes. Sap green. I think I already explained it before, but if you're wondering why these colors are flattened out the way they are, it's just because they had a little too much linseed oil in them. They're just kind of dripping all over the place. A little more flake white. And again, if you're new and you want to know exactly why I have two whites, This one is more akin to portrait painting, really, the flake white, because it allows you to use much more of it without raising the value too much, as you're seeing here, therefore allowing you to have a thicker mixture of paint. The titanium white is really when you just want to blast the value. Let me just scrape this off. This is one of the nice things about glass palettes. You can do that. Okay, so let's put in another plane. This is a nice little cluster of planes to observe. See that? Now we have a third plane. Look at that. I mean, look at the form that we're getting in just 3 planes. 3 values, okay? I never get this excited about planes, but check it out, okay? Check this out, okay? Now we're going to put in a 4th plane, and you're going to be like, what? Or you're going to be like, whatever. I don't know. Okay, 4th plane, okay? 4th plane. Look at that. I mean, just look at the form that we're starting to get that easily and that quickly with planes. It's just incredible what you can do with planar thinking in a painting, okay? So, like I said, I'm going to try to keep this step by step, alright? So we're facing the light a lot over here, okay? Probably the most light facing plane on the face is here. So the window at Frans Hals' studio must have been there, coming from this direction. The window must have been up there somewhere if you're looking at the model directly. Now, this plane is facing the light a little bit less, but still more than here. This plane is facing the light a little bit, I want to say, less than this one, but still more than this one. And I don't really think about all of this in my head when I paint it. It's not like I'm talking to myself while I'm painting all the time and, you know, analyzing and writing out a differential equation for every single plane and every angle of such plane. Really, it all just comes down to practice, okay? See, now I'm splitting this plane from this plane, so it just comes with practice, you know, and that spatial reasoning is something you build. So this is now with the light brush, okay? So I'll have a light brush and a middle tone brush. So now, switching back to the middle tone brush with a little more burnt umber. And now we're carving out another plane. And you want to think about the large structures. Okay, large structures before getting hung up on the minutia, before getting hung up on the small things. Okay? You don't really want to be focusing right now on eyelash or eyelids or eyeball or anything like that. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but I just think this is more fun to sculpt out these large planes. Now another large, big old plane over here. And then we're going to have another kind of warmish tone. So as we move around here, the hues are going to change to be a little bit, let me use the titanium white, to be a little bit warmer. So we're looking at a nice little passage of light right there. A little more titanium white. Okay, and now it's going to get darker and a little bit warmer, but not that warm. So we're going to combine the alizarin and the burnt umber, a little bit of the cadmium red. Could still get a little bit darker. Okay, so now I'm going to carry that plane out. Another nice thing to do is to relate shapes to one another. This should be facing the light a little bit less than this. So I am going to push it a little bit darker still. Cool. And now I'm going to raise the value a little bit. And see how it's much warmer now as we're moving on down here. So in portraiture, okay, flesh tones are typically very close to one another in terms of their hue, you know, in terms of their color. So this is why I organize, you know, see how it's getting darker. It's going to keep getting darker as the colors go down into what I call my color value web. So I actually just ended up losing this plane. Put that plane back. Okay. And like I said, I'm focusing on the main triangle, because it's just easier, okay, just more practical to gauge from the main triangle and and adjust everything around. A little bit darker. A little bit darker and warmer. So now we're going to get a little bit of a darker value, almost the same as this value right there for the cheekbone. Side plane of the mandible, side plane of the zygomatic bone, cheekbone, okay? Fancy way of saying cheekbone. And no extra medium, none. Okay. So I just switched brushes there. Now we're going to start to paint in this form overlap. Okay, now with the same brush, see how I can just take right from the palette and get a value lighter, a value that is lighter. Pretty much just one step lighter, really. And now I'm starting to move towards the light. Very simple. Switching brushes here. I'm going to get a little bit of a more pinkish color. And see how with the plane, I'm also sculpting out a more specific shape for each little area. That's why I said in the umber sketch I wasn't really trying to get a perfect outline, just because oil paint, the nature of oil paint is it's very forgiving. you know how it takes forever to dry, so it stays open for a while, and it just allows you to push the paint around, especially if you have nice artist grade oil paints, such as the oil paints you can purchase through my Amazon affiliate links. There. Okay, so now let's add a little bit more warmth with the same brush, just a little bit lighter, maybe one step lighter. There. See, almost like Santa Claus, the rosy cheeks were moving up. See that? We're planing out. We're sculpting out another little plane over here. Just trying to get a nice edge. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is put in a lighter plane up here. So we'll use the titanium white, cadmium red. There. See that? Now we're starting to build a much more solid form. And this is what makes portrait painting so much fun. So you can just see everything come to life. Okay, so now that we have this same value, of course I need to put in a darker shape there, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So now that we have this value, I'm going to actually start to put in these darker halftones. They're a little bit warmer. See how we're moving further down the color value web. So burnt umber, alizarin, okay. So it's going to get darker and warmer right around here. And tell you what, it's going to get really dark now. So more burnt umber, but still not that dark yet. See, almost the same value as the dark accent on the umber sketch there. Okay. Another little half tone here. Move up one step lighter now. Now we're building some more structures. Lighter and lighter as we move up towards the top plane. The cheekbone. And now darker again. See how easy it is to adjust the values with the color value web. Now it's going to get lighter. There. And of course, details are nothing, okay? Not focusing on details right now. But don't worry, we'll get into the smaller shapes soon. Okay, now with the same brush, we're going to add a little bit of a warmer color. So a little bit more of the alizarin, well, actually that's alizarin permanent. A little more alizarin permanent. Okay, painting in that half tone first. Now we're going to go up a little bit lighter. Now it's time to switch back to the light brush. So cadmium red into this value. Want to make sure that the color is nicely mixed into the bristles. Okay. No extra medium, alright? No extra medium, just the paint. That way you have more control over your edges, I think. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get the, where's my brush? Okay, the drawing brush. A little more burnt umber. See how we're getting much darker now. And the alizarin. Oh, there we go. Just give him a little nostril. Like so. Okay, we still don't have the shape, the exact shape of this shadow. So how about we go ahead just with the burnt umber now. Let's cool it down with the sap green. And now we'll go back in and with the kind of a bold mark now. Try to get that shape. And if we don't get it right, it's okay. We live to paint another day. It's all good. Okay. Now then, I'm going to get a clean and dry synthetic brush. Remember earlier I made a comment about if you use just paint, it makes the edge work a little bit easier, and this is why, because there's so much paint here now. I can just kind of, with a clean and dry synthetic, just soften. But of course the shape still isn't right, so we'll go back in. There. Now let's try to get rid of the glare. See that nasty little reflection there? That is a glare. So I'm gonna clean this off. So with the clean and dry synthetic, what you want to do for this kind of purpose, really, it's off camera. I wish I had other camera angles, but I'm just working with what I have. I'm cleaning this off with just paper towel. Just paper towel, no mineral spirits. There we go. It's not perfect, but I think it looks a little better than it was before. Okay, all right now, so we're gonna start to put in some of these lighter colors. I heard a highlight, someone call highlight a specular reflection the other day. So let's be fancy, let's call it a specular reflection, but for our purposes here, it's just a highlight. So highlight there, and there's also a highlight here following this plane. See how form is starting to build little by little. Now I'm going to go back to the drawing brush. Let's put a big old S curve here. There. Now, clean and dry synthetic. And you can actually now push the paint and create a value automatically just by moving the paint around with the clean and dry synthetic. That's just a bad habit. Sometimes I'll just clean off the brush on the corner of the canvas just from laziness. There. Now we're getting a little more specificity. Not quite perfect, but it'll have to do. Like I said, today's episode is a little bit slower paced, step by step, easy going. So now I switched back to the halftone brush. We're gonna put in this nice and clean plane. for the eyebrows, and we're going to sculpt out the shape for the eyebrow. Oh yeah, so I mentioned the pace of this video. It's a lot slower just because, you know, I'm a little bit under the weather. And I know this because my battery is indicating it's like half life or whatever. The battery is half full right now. So a little bit more burnt umber, cadmium red. Now we're going to sculpt out this, probably a little too pink, sap green to the rescue. Just sculpting out these nice planes. Easy does it. Easy does it. Okay, so now we can venture off to the forehead. Forehead's relatively easy compared to all of the shapes that we were working with here. So lighter plane over here, and it also looks a little bit warmer. We're using the nickel yellow. So nickel yellow is a very classical looking color. It's supposed to be similar to lead tin yellow, which is the color I was originally looking for when I purchased the nickel yellow, but nonetheless it's a color that I really enjoy using. Now here's another plane here that's a little bit less facing the light, so that's why I'm moving down in terms of the value, but only a little, only a tiny bit compared to here. And now it's going to get much darker. And by much darker, I mean a slight change. See that? Very slight. And that's how you do it. That's how you get subtlety. How close can you get the values to one another, yet still maintain their subtle differentiation from one another? Now it's getting a little bit darker. So there's a little bit of a ripple here, so it's going to get darker here. Okay, just one step darker. Easy does it. And then it's going to start to pick up again. So it's going to get lighter over here. Easy does it. A little bit lighter. See how we're creating the form? Just turning, going in, over, and now we'll continue that. And again, it's not quite perfect, okay? It's never going to be perfect, but that's okay. As long as we understand the form, we understand color, a little bit of the anatomy that I've been talking about, and structure, we're good. Don't worry. We'll be fine. So now a little bit of the sap green. So nice and very cool halftones now for the hairline. And with the hairline, you want this edge here to be very soft. The hairline is probably the softest edge and the most subtle edge, and it's the easiest one to mess up. So just make it soft. And if you think you can make it softer, keep making it soft. Okay, now just one step up in terms of the value. And now we're turning form. So this is how we close up the form. We're turning the form by describing the way light turns all the way around here, and it's going to get darker much more rapidly over here because the form is turning. See that? Much more of a rapid turn. So what I'm going to do now is paint the plane, okay? So paint in the plane change, like so. And now that there's a lot of paint there, now we're going to negotiate with the edge here with the synthetic. Clean and dry synthetic. Soften away. And now you've just described the curvature of the form. Very simple there. Now we're going to carry on a little bit lighter and cooler, so I'm using the nickel yellow. Okay, now we're going to switch back to the clean and dry synthetic. Like so. Okay, so now we have some stuff to describe for the ear. Kind of forgot the ear. So let me see, let me think here. I'm going to put in the darks first. So I'm going to use the drawing brush. So I went straight to cadmium red to raise the value. Cadmium red, alizarin, burnt umber. I'm gonna stand back. Okay, so let's start to put in this little dark shape. Okay. Now a little bit lighter and more red. So cadmium red and the nickel yellow. There we go. Might be too red. So what do we use? I don't know. Ivory black. Just because I don't want the chroma to be so high. There. Though it's probably not noticeable on camera. Okay, so now a little bit of the nickel yellow, cadmium red. The ears typically are much warmer, okay? And you can definitely see that in this painting, the Frans Hals. Now, halftone brush. Nope, not yet. I'm going to use the same color for the earlobe. There. Like I said earlier, one thing I really like about these old master paintings is how they simplified ears. You know, just tragus of the ear, helix, anti-helix, just maybe a brush stroke or two. Helix, anti-helix, I'm describing here this little curve for the ear. Tragus right here. And you know what? Let's make our ear on this one even more simple. Why? Because I'm lazy. I don't want to paint that much into the ear. So as long as we get the shape, we're good. A little bit. I'm going to try to paint in a single brush stroke, the continuation of the back of the ear there. There. So, like I usually say, when in doubt, blur it out. But this time, I do want to differentiate at least the helix, anti-helix for the ear. So, in my laziness, trying not to spend so much time on the ear, I ended up creating more work for myself. So, now I'm going to have to go back in with the drawing brush. Just carve out this shape. Here's the dark for the tragus. Yeah, see, when you're lazy, you just end up making more work for yourself, so let's try not to be too lazy. So the alizarin, burnt umber. Let's differentiate helix, anti-helix here. There. Now, what am I missing? So the light over here, the ear has a little bit of a highlight on the earlobe. And then over here. And then we're going to kind of cut into that later. Or how about, let's just do that now. I'm going to get a different brush just black and white, titanium white, ivory black for now. Keep life simple. There, let's just cut that in. Okay, that works. That works. Okay, put this brush aside. How about we start to paint in the facial hair? So I kind of just used the brush that I didn't intend to use. Sorry, speaking away from the microphone. Oh dear. Okay, I have another brush. We're good. I have another brush. So burnt umber, sap, just burnt and sap for now. The facial hair. And I'm more or less just trying to put in a basic shape for the facial hair right now, because I kind of need it to differentiate those edges. This is still kind of early for me, I think, to get into facial hair, but I needed it for that, like I said before. Make sure the edge is soft. Still no medium, okay? No extra medium. I get the curl for the mustache there. Alright. So now we are left with the mouth. And then after that, I think we'll start to get into the smaller planes. So cadmium red, this is my halftone brush. Though I don't want it to be that saturated, so burnt umber. There's the lower lip, roughly sketched in there with color. And let's put in an upper lip. So you kind of need one of those. There. Now, where's my drawing brush? Where's my brush? There it is. Okay. Burnt umber. Whatever, just burnt umber right now. Always look for shape, and simplification of shape is key, okay? Try to describe the most you can with the least you can, and thus optimizing the information conveyed in every single brush stroke. Okay, so now the halftone brush again, so it's gonna get a little darker. I don't know why, but over here I'm seeing something darker. The corner of the lip. Oh, I think that's the shadow actually being casted from the mustache. And then there's gonna be, let's just use the same old brush, a lighter shape over here. And then we'll just let that blend into the facial hair. You know what? Let's just use this for the light of the facial hair. There's gonna be a massive glare at first, and I'll correct that glare with the clean and dry synthetic. All right, come on, clean and dry synthetic. Make my life easier. There. A little better. Okay, so now that we have all of these large planes intact, minus, hold up, wait a minute. That, so minus a little bit of a darker shape there. I'll get into that later. So now we can get into the smaller shapes. So for the smaller shapes, I recommend, again, synthetics. because now at this stage you don't really want to be adding too much extra paint now. Rather, you just want to be herding towards specificity, herding the paint. Okay. Now I'm going to switch brushes. Whoops. I think I forgot to clean this brush earlier. Oh well. So that's the top plane of the lower eyelid. Okay. Now I'm gonna get, hold on, I'm gonna get a different brush. Where's my brush? Okay, so black and white and some flesh tone for the sclera. Sclera is pretty dark this time. Okay, so I'm running into a little bit of a trouble with the size of the brush, so I'm going to have to get an even smaller brush. I'm going to add a little bit of my medium, that is Neo McGilt medium, to thin out the paint. And again, everything's typed up for you in the description box down below. Okay. And while I have this dark shape, might as well start to put in the eyebrows. Ivory black. Eyebrows are a little bit on the cooler side this time. Gonna stand back. Okay, alright, so now of course we still need some more specificity for that eye. Okay, at this point I definitely need smaller brushes. So let's just use this one. And while we have this brush, titanium white, ultramarine blue, just so it's a little bit cooler. Let's try to put in the highlight. It's kind of difficult when you're reaching over a camera. There. Okay. Now then, I still need to describe a little bit more for the lower eyelids, so switching again to a different brush. I do have a lot of these smaller brushes. Now with the same value, I'm going to start to put in this plane. And if I can find the brush with the sclera, hold up. I gotta change a battery now. Alright, so I just swapped out a battery. Hopefully that didn't affect the camera angle there for you. So let's go ahead, put in the ivory black, alizarin, ultra. Start to put in the dark for the iris. Okay, so now with the smaller brush, a little more ivory black, a little bit of this a darker flesh tone. We're going to put in the color for the sclera. A little bit lighter. Okay, now I'm going to put the, you get a little bit of a darker sclera color. Okay, now switching back to the color for the iris, I'm going to push the iris to the left a little. Okay, now we're going to paint in a nice little half tone underneath. Now the brush that I use for the sclera, I'm going to have to clean it. So I'm just cleaning it with the odorless mineral spirits. I need a lighter flesh tone for the top plane of the lower eyelid. Okay, now stand back. Alright, so now we're starting to get somewhere with the eyes, though of course now that we're adding in all of these elements we just have to fine tune them. So I'm pushing that shape up a little bit. We're going to add a little bit more light over here. Okay, stand back. Okay, alright, so now the brush for the dark of the eye. A little more alizarin. Stand back. Okay. Ivory black. So I think I'm going to adjust the dark side of the sclera. So I'll probably be a little more quiet now because I have to keep, maneuvering these shapes around. This is where I usually will use a cut scene, or I would have in the past. Because this is kind of repetitive stuff. But for the sake of the paint along, I want to show everything, even the repetitive stuff. So there's a little bridgeway plane here between, so this point to this point. So this is what I mean by a bridgeway plane. Lighter here, but I still want to keep that little half tone in between. Okay. Now we'll just soften. Of course, I'm going to need to cut that shape all the way in a little bit. Let's see if we can do that with the background color. So let's get this brush here. So let's just use black and white again. Make life simple. Push this in. Like so. Gonna stand back. Okay. Standing back. Alright, so after putting that in, I'm sure you must have already noticed this, I have to move this brush stroke for the mouth. This is one of the things I don't really miss too much about traditional oil paints versus water cleanable. They glare a lot more, I think. Of course, that also depends on the surface you're painting onto and the lighting. But anyway, I have to push this in. Stand back. Okay, so I'm gonna soften. So when in doubt, blur it out. But this definitely needs to soften. I don't want to draw too much attention towards the mouth. Okay, so now back to the task at hand. So pushing that in. Now I'm gonna go back in with the dark. Whew, yeah, that's definitely glaring. Stand back. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and soften this again. Just so the form appears to turn. Okay, now we're going to have to soften over here as well. So you do want to contrast soft edges and sharp edges. So this one a little bit more orangey color for this plane right here. And now, rather than trying to soften with this brush, I'm just trying to pat the paint down to try to reduce the glare. And then soften over here. And over here. Alright, so now that we started putting in some of the smaller shapes, I think it's a good idea to start to put in the larger masses. So now I'm going to go back in with the background brush, black and white. Maybe we'll throw in some burnt umber. Now this is going to glare much more. That's just the nature of things right now. but that's okay. At least hopefully we can see this area without too much glare. So as we're painting in the background, we're going to put in information for the hair. So we're painting things kind of simultaneously. So burnt umber, ultramarine blue, not too much ultramarine blue, just a little bit, and some alizarin permanent, just to add a touch of warmth. Okay, so now that might be too dark, so let's just use the flesh tone to lighten a little bit. Okay. Now I'm gonna get a different brush. Any old brush will do. So just titanium white. A little bit of ivory black, but less of it. We're going to start to put in this, the rough, it's called. Still no extra medium. And of course the rough is going to get darker back here. Sorry, I'm trying to fight off the need to cough. I think that was the only time I coughed. Hopefully I can fight it. So much more of the white here. Now we're going to switch back to the background brush, and this area is very similar in value to this area, so we'll paint it that way. A little more ultra. Oof, that's way too blue. And then it's going to get a little bit lighter towards here. Very simple there. Now we're going to switch to the brush that we used for the hair. Burnt umber, ivory black. We'll put in the dark under here. Okay, now a little more burnt umber, yellow ochre, just to lighten the value a little bit. Okay, now the background brush. Let's cover the rest of the background here. So background, covering the background is usually story time. I don't really have much to cover there, but I don't really have much story time to say. I mean, yes, you know, I've been sick for a week now. I'm feeling a little better. Let's see, what did I do while I was sick? Other than just lay in bed and try to recover. I watched like all of season 9 of The Walking Dead. So that's something. Though of course I'm not going to, you know, ruin it for anyone. But I liked it. I've been watching a lot of movies and TV shows and trying to analyze them. You know, I don't have much of a film background, Though of course I would like to learn more about it, but I do have this idea in mind for the future. Remember the daily Yupari a while ago, back when I was uploading daily, and you would actually see me on camera because I had multiple camera angles. I want to do that. I want to bring that back, but I want to make more of a TV show kind of thing, you know, guiding you along the development of a painting and bringing that to the general public is an idea that I've had. So I've been thinking about that a lot while laying in bed sick, trying to recover. And I think that that's a valid idea. I just have to figure out how to bring it to light, and you know, I'm gonna have to upgrade camera equipment and stuff like that, so that's gonna be kind of difficult. But that's another thing that's been going on in my head, you know, trying to figure out how to make this type of TV show. Obviously I might have to edit it, so it won't be as long as these videos have been, unless folks would like to see that. But I'm also inspired by, you know, Bob Ross and The Dog Whisperer and other kinds of shows that teach you something. It's really one of my biggest dreams, to be honest, to be able to do that. Just the thought of being able to do something with painting that brings that to people, the experience, and gets them to actually look at paintings in the museums, and you know, just bring that kind of appreciation to others. That's what's been on my mind. But in any case, now I'm going to just soften over here. So we're almost there. Like I said, these are master studies, okay, not master copies. And these are paint-alongs as well, so they're designed for you to watch and draw or paint along with me. Obviously, this one is a little less developed than previous ones, just because I'm really not feeling that great. But I really wanted to be here in the studio and to paint. It really brings joy to my life to be able to paint and to pass this on to others. It's really one of the biggest accomplishments, I think, that I could ever achieve. And I think that's something beyond merely just trying to paint a more realistic picture, in my opinion. So right now I'm just going along and bumping into the camera. I'm just going along and softening shapes where I think they need to be softened. So a little bit on the side of the nose. The eyebrow still needs a little bit of work, so I'm gonna soften. Then I'm gonna get out to, let's say, I don't know, whatever brush. Let's put in this brush. Okay. So a little bit more for the eyebrows. Soften again. I'm gonna sit back. So sitting really far back, the painting doesn't look that bad. Getting closer to it it's a different story. But that's usually the way I kind of prefer it, really. You know, that the painting holds its best at a distance. And that's really, that's really what you want the painting to, the effect you want the painting to have. You want to bring people to the painting, not draw them away. So there are a few gray hairs here that I missed. Glad I saw that. Let's make sure I paint the other side of this ruff here. I think one time I actually forgot to paint the other side of a collar, so I'm not going to forget this time. But anyway, back to the gray hair. Just softening the edges. And again, if you want to see more of my studio paintings, before I got sick, I was doing a lot of studio paintings. And I'm back to that now, so I'm going to be working on those studio paintings all the time. Like I said before, hopefully to have an exhibition, like a one-man show or something, one-person show or something, but, you know, we'll see. But anyway, you can see all of that on my Instagram. I'm going to start posting on Instagram again. I typically try to post every single day on Instagram. I have a larger figure painting I've been working on. I'm going to start another larger narrative painting similar to the Steve one that you saw. Gonna stand back. And of course, how could I forget, or almost forget, these little curls in the ruff. So let's try to paint them in. So I have to squint really to see how these are shaped, or to see the shape of these curls. So this is going to be one of those things where if I put in, I think, enough in the front, then hopefully the eye will finish the rest. At least from the distance, meaning hopefully I don't have to paint in every little curl here. And squinting just helps me see less detail and try to get down to the essence of the shape. So I'm more or less just painting in little curls. And at this point over here, I'm going to just simplify much more. So it's not too much or too eye-catching. A few little light planes catching over here. Actually going to make it a little darker over here. I think that should work. And then of course I made that too brown over there, so a little bit of the ultra marine blue. I'm going to stand back. It looks a little better, I guess. Let's cover down to the edge of the painting. Okay, stand back. Alright, okay, we're getting somewhere. I think a few more little curls of light for the rough. We're definitely getting more into composition with this one, just because there's like at least one more element in this painting. So it's important when you have multiple elements in a painting. This especially applies in my studio work, really. You know, to have the elements in the painting kind of frame the focal point of the painting. So for instance, this is all kind of framing the portrait nicely. So a good thing I stood back. The edge for the nose is off. So let's correct that. Or should I say the angle? Cool. Alright. I don't know how I didn't see that before. It's always important to stand back, okay? I don't think I'm standing back enough even. Standing back really helps you see these things. Of course, gotta soften this edge as well. Compositionally, it just also helps to have a nice sharp edge over here. And of course, now this edge can be more descriptive. Putting in that little dark accent underneath of the mustache. I'm seeing all kinds of little things now that I can adjust. Hope you don't mind. But of course, if I'm too slow, then of course you can skip ahead. Stepping back. So I do think I need a little more light for the sclera. Let's just use this Maybe just a little glimpse of light here. And then another one, let me clean off the brush first. And there's another little kind of hook of light. Of course, that's either too light or it's glaring. Not sure which one yet. Probably a little of both. Gonna step back. Okay, now we're gonna round this out a little bit. Kind of softening while we're at it. Okay, I'm gonna have to change. See, this got a little paint on it. Okay, changed clean and dry synthetic brushes. Although this one's kind of beat up. Where's my brush? Okay, got another one. All right, stepping back. There should be a little more information for the nose, but I kind of like that it's just just kind of like 3 brush strokes there. I think I'm going to leave that be. Stepping back. Okay, so there's a few more little details for the eye. I keep going back to the eye. So I thinned out the paint a little bit with the mineral spirits. It's going to need a little more light, so with the same brush, just cleaning it off. So when you're painting alla prima, wet on wet, thin paint tends to stick onto thick paint, so that's kind of what I'm utilizing right now. Since the paint is a little bit thinner, it should stick a little better. There. Alright, I think that looks a little bit better. Now standing back again. Alright, this has definitely been, I think, a little bit of a longer episode, so gonna have to just do a few more little final touches, and I think we're gonna call it soon. So just softening over here. Like I said before, one of the reasons why I used little to no medium before is because now look how much control I have over these edges. So I can literally just kind of sculpt out the paint like a sculptor with clay. Also don't want to over soften either, so very cautious of that too. Okay. Alright, I think I've dragged this one on long enough. Time to just throw the brush off to the side. That being said, I really hope that today's episode helps you out. I wish you the best in all of your artwork. I really do hope that today's episode, even though I'm feeling kind of under the weather, I hope that you're able to follow along draw or paint along with me. Most importantly, make sure to always take care of yourself. You know, I am working while still a little bit under the weather, but I gave myself as much time as I possibly could to recover. Okay, I think your health definitely comes first, but like I said, this has already been a week, so I gotta paint. You know, I have to paint. Painting is just, it's like oxygen to me, you know. I really need to paint. So anyway, I do hope that this helps you out. I wish you the best, and I'll see you again on the next episode.